All right, future CPAs, welcome. Let's jump right into one of the toughest topics in your RFBT review, the law on contracts. Specifically, we're talking about what happens when consent, the very soul of a contract, is broken. We're not going to do boring textbook stuff today. Instead, we're going to hack it. We'll break it down so these rules stick with you all the way to the LEPA.
So look, I get it. You might be in your second or third year, and the big board exam feels like it's a lifetime away. But the stuff you learn now, you need it to stick. So the real question is, how do you lock this information in your long-term memory, not just cram it for a quiz? Well, that's exactly what we're going to build today, a mental framework that lasts.
Here's our roadmap. Super simple. First, we'll hit the absolute core of what makes a contract. Then, we'll look at the two big ways consent gets broken, who is legally incapable of giving it, and when the consent itself is just flawed. We've got a killer brain hack for the 5 vices, and then we'll wrap it all up with a rapid-fire bullet review perfect for your exam prep. Let's do this.
Okay, section 1. Let's dive right in. Before we can even talk about breaking contracts, we have to understand the one single non-negotiable ingredient that every single contract needs to even exist. So Article 1305 gives us the official legal-sounding definition, but I want you to zero in on that key phrase, meeting of minds. That's the whole game. It's not just about signing a piece of paper, it's about a real, genuine, voluntary agreement, and that agreement, that meeting of minds, has a name: consent. And that's the main point, right here. Without valid consent, you have nothing, no contract, period. It is the foundation. And if your foundation is cracked, the entire building is coming down. This is exactly why mastering the rules on consent is an absolute must for the LCPA exam.
Okay, so let's get into our first major pillar of broken consent. What if someone legally just can't give consent? This is all about incapacity. It's not about consent being flawed. It's about the person themselves being told by the law, nope, you can't consent. Now, the great thing for us is that the law gives us a very short, specific list. These are your red flags. First, unemancipated minors. Second, insane or demented persons, but there's a catch, right? Except during a lucid interval, one of those rare moments of total clarity. And third, deaf mutes who don't know how to write. The law basically puts a protective bubble around these people, assuming they can't fully understand what they're agreeing to.
So, what's the result? This is a huge exam point. If one party falls into one of those categories, the contract is voidable. Notice it's not void, it's voidable. That means the contract is actually valid until it gets annulled or canceled. And the power to cancel it belongs to the incapacitated person or their guardian. It's a protection, an escape hatch.
All right, on to the second pillar. So what happens when everyone involved is perfectly capable of giving consent, but the consent itself is, well, tainted? It was given, sure, but it wasn't a real, intelligent, and free choice. And boom, Article 130 lays out the 5 things that can spoil consent: mistake, violence, intimidation, undue influence, or fraud. If consent was gotten through any of these, it's defective. And just like with incapacity, the legal status is, you guessed it, voidable. The consent is there, it just isn't clean.
These 5 things are famously known as the vices of consent. It's not enough to just know the list, you've got to be able to tell them apart in a tricky exam problem. So let's break them down, one by one.
And here it is, the study hack you've been waiting for, the one that's going to lock this in forever. The acronym is MVIFU. That's MVIFU. Mistake, violence, intimidation, undue influence, fraud. How are you going to remember that? Just think of the sentence. My very intelligent friend understands. MVIFU. Say it out loud. This is your anchor for this whole topic.
First step, M for mistake. Now, this is super important. We are not talking about any small error. This has to be a major mistake of fact about the actual thing you're buying or a key condition that made you say yes. Think about buying a lot that you thought was for commercial use, but it turns out it's only for farming. That's a big deal. That's the kind of mistake we're talking about.
Next, V and I for violence and intimidation. People get these mixed up, but the difference is simple. Violence is physical. Someone is literally using serious, irresistible force to make you sign. Intimidation, on the other hand, is mental. It's a threat. No one's touching you, but they're creating a reasonable fear of some serious harm. So one is about force, the other is about the fear of force.
In fact, Article 1335 itself gives us the perfect definition. The fear can't just be some vague worry. It has to be a reasonable and well-grounded fear. The evil has to be imminent and grave, and it can be a threat against you, your property, or even your family. That's the legal test.
Okay, now for the U. Undue influence. This one is more subtle. It's not about threats, it's about a power imbalance. Think of a special relationship, like family or a spiritual advisor or a caregiver. If one person uses that position of power improperly to basically overpower the other person's free will, that's undue influence. It's manipulation, not a direct threat.
And finally, F for fraud, or dolo. Okay, you absolutely have to know the two types for the LSCPA. First is causal fraud, dolo causante. This is the serious one. This is the fraud that induced you to sign. Without the lie, there would be no contract. The fix? Annulment. The second type is incidental fraud, dolo incidente. This is fraud in just the performance of the contract. You would have signed anyway, but maybe on different terms. Here, the contract stands, but you can sue for damages. The remedy is completely different.
Okay, theory's done. Now it's time to switch to beast mode. Let's distill everything into a high-speed review. This is the cheat sheet you'll want to screenshot or come back to right before an exam. Let's do a rapid-fire status check. One party is incapacitated? That's voidable. Consent is ruined by one of the MV few vices? Also voidable. But here's the curveball they love to throw at you. What if both parties are incapacitated? Like two minors make a deal. The contract is unenforceable. Totally different status. And one more time, let's drill that brain hack. What are the 5 vices of consent? MVIFU. Mistake, violence, intimidation, undue influence, fraud. My very intelligent friend understands. Lock it in. You've got this. Here's a pro tip, a classic trick question. If someone threatens to sue you, is that intimidation? The answer is no, as long as their claim is just and legal. The law says that's just exercising a right, not creating a vicious fear. Don't fall for that one on the exam. And remember, a voidable contract isn't broken forever. You have a limited time to get it annulled. There's a shelf life, and that magic number you need to burn into your memory is 4 years. You have to take action within 4 years, or you lose the right to complain.
But when does that 4-year clock start ticking? It depends. For intimidation or violence, the clock starts when the threat or force stops. Makes sense. For mistake or fraud, it starts from the moment you discover the truth. And for incapacity, the timer begins when that incapacity ends, like when a minor becomes an adult. Knowing these starting points is absolutely critical.
So, we've hacked the code on broken consent. You can now spot an incapacitated party, and you know all about MVIFU. To take it to the next level, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Out of all the defective contracts, rescissible, voidable, unenforceable, and void, which one do you think is actually the most dangerous to get into in the real world? And why? Thinking about that will really deepen your understanding. Keep studying hard.